Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever had that feeling where you know exactly what you want to say, but you just can't find the perfect word for it? Well, today we're going to fix that. We're unlocking 20 everyday English words with some really important subtle differences. Getting these right will help you communicate with so much more precision. So let's just dive right in.
So, think about it for a second. Are you complaining or are you just grumbling? You see, it's a small difference, but it completely changes the vibe of the situation. We're about to clear up confusing little distinctions just like that one, and even bigger ones, like the difference between misusing your power and, well, abusing it. Let's get started. We've broken this down into 4 parts. First, we'll get into words about our inner world, feelings and intentions. Then we'll look at words for those tricky social moments. After that, we'll tune our ears to some words that sound almost the same but are totally different. And finally, we'll wrap up with some really powerful words for growth and taking action.
Okay, first up, words of feeling and intent. This is all about the language we use to describe what's going on inside our heads. The difference between something being an accident versus a deliberate choice. Let's get into it. Our first word is regret. Now, this can be a verb or a noun. When you regret something, it means you feel sad about something you did, or maybe something you didn't do. You can also have a regret. The adjective here is regretful. Someone who is regretful is full of regret. For example, you might say, he was regretful about his harsh words. It's that really deep feeling of wishing you could just turn back time. Now, let's look at this key contrast. On one side, you have unintentional, which just means it was an accident, a mistake. Like, the error was unintentional. But on the other side, we have deliberate. This means it was done on purpose, it was planned. The adverb form is deliberately. And this is a huge difference, right? One is a simple mistake, but the other, that's a choice. Next up, we have the verb to distract. This is when you pull someone's focus away from what they're trying to do. And the thing that distracts you, well, that's a distraction. We often talk about being distracted by something. A perfect classic example is, my phone is a constant distraction when I'm trying to get work done. I think we all know that feeling. So, we've looked inside. Now let's explore how our actions can affect other people. We're moving on to our second section. Navigating social friction. These are the words we really need for those complicated and, sometimes pretty difficult interactions between people. Okay, these 4 verbs can be really easy to mix up, so let's walk through them slowly. First, we have misuse. Notice this usually applies to things, like tools or systems. You misuse a hammer if you use it to stir paint. Next, abuse. This one is much stronger and often relates to people or power. It means cruel or violent or unfair treatment. Then there's mistreat, which is a bit more general. It just means to treat people or animals badly. And finally, exploit. This is when you use someone unfairly for your own benefit. So the key difference here is really who or what is being affected, and just how serious the action is. Here are 4 different flavors of social discomfort. So if your train is delayed and it makes you late, that's inconvenient. If you say the wrong thing and the whole conversation just stops, that feeling is awkward. If a fire alarm goes off and stops a meeting, that's disruptive. And if someone says something that's meant to hurt you, well, that's insulting. Each word pinpoints a very specific kind of negative feeling. Okay, so things have gone wrong. A situation is inconvenient, or maybe it's just plain awkward. So, what do? How do you actually talk about being unhappy with a situation? And here's how we do it. The most general word is just to complain. But honestly, the word we pick says so much more. For example, if you complain over and over again about little things, that's nagging, and it's usually pretty annoying. If you complain in a high-pitched, sort of childish voice, that's whining. And if you're just kind of quietly complaining to yourself under your breath, that's grumbling. So the word you choose really paints a picture of how someone is unhappy. All right, time to switch gears completely. In this next section, we are tackling words that sound super similar but mean totally different things. This is definitely where your ears can play tricks on you. Okay, so listen really closely to these 3 words. Crave, cave, carve. See, they're all short, they have that similar V sound, but they are worlds apart in what they mean. So let's break them down one by one. Let's start with to crave. To crave something means you have a really, really strong, almost physical desire for it. We often talk about craving food, right? Like in the example, I crave chocolate after dinner. But you can also crave abstract things. You could say someone craves attention or craves success. It's all about that intense want. Next up is cave. Now, as a noun, super simple. It's a big hole in a hill. But as a verb, it's way more interesting. To cave, or even more commonly, to cave in, means you finally surrender or agree to something after being under a lot of pressure. For instance, after a long argument, my parents finally caved and let me go to the concert.
And the third one is to carve. This means you cut into a hard material, like wood or stone, to create a shape or design. You could carve a statue out of wood. A very similar word is to engrave, which is basically carving but with much finer, more delicate detail, usually on metal or glass. So you'd engrave a message on a watch. And hey, one last related word to keep in mind here is grave. It sounds a little different, but the spelling is similar. As a noun, a grave is a place where someone is buried. But as an adjective, grave means very, very serious. So if you make a grave mistake, you've made a really serious error. All right, for our final section, we're diving into words of power and growth. This is the kind of language you use when you want to build something, make an impact, and really move things forward. Let's start with a really important difference, a noun versus a verb. Over here, we've got strength. That's the noun. It's a quality, something you have, like inner strength. But on the other side, we have the action word, the verb, to strengthen. That's what you do to build that quality. Think of it this way. You have strength and you go to the gym to strengthen your muscles. Our next word is to monetize. This is a big one in business, but it's actually pretty simple. It just means you find a way to earn money from something. It could be a skill you have or an asset you own. The process is straightforward. You figure out what's valuable, you find a way to get paid for it, and you turn it into something real. For example, a lot of people monetize their blogs with ads. Here we have 4 fantastic words for describing projects and goals. First, span. That's just the length of time something lasts, like a lifespan. Then there's scope, which is the range of things a project covers. How big is it? Next, regularity. That's all about consistency, doing something at fixed times. And finally, discipline. That's the self-control you need to maintain that regularity. See how they all work together? Now, to diagnose is such a powerful verb. It's not just for doctors. It means to identify the root cause of any problem. A doctor diagnoses an illness, sure, but a mechanic can diagnose what's wrong with your car. The noun form is a diagnosis, and getting that diagnosis right, that's always the first step to actually solving the problem. And you know, that really brings us to the main point of all this. Using the right word isn't about trying to sound smart. It's about being understood. It's about making a real connection. Because, as it says here, the right word at the right time can change everything. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Which new word are you going to try and use today? Maybe you'll diagnose a problem at work. Or maybe you'll describe an awkward situation with a little more clarity. Or maybe you'll just decide not to cave on something important to you. The choice is yours. Thanks so much for joining me.